call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're all here to consider the eligibility of Councilmember Abernethy to continue to serve on the Beech Mountain Town Council. There will be no public comments. Our first order is we know how you feel, so we're not going to do public comments. We only need to do that once a month, and we're not going to do that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So why sometimes we can do public comments and today we can't?
Agreed.
Mr. Abernethy, I can answer.
I second that.
Excuse me. Statutorily, council is required at least once a month to hold a public comment session. It is only mandated that that be done at one meeting a month. As far as the agenda for today, for a special meeting that is set by the mayor, subject to amendment as council may deem appropriate if council wishes to make any such amendments.
Before I trust nothing you say. So, at the end of the meeting, are there public comments?
No.
Why? Which
This
statute is that?
This has to do with the topic at hand. We know how everybody feels.
It doesn't matter. I think people.
We-
No, you don't.
All right, folks,
People need
listen to me.
People need to be able to voice their opinion.
Come on, we're not doing it. You can say whatever you want to say about me after this meeting, we're not doing it. We'll be here from now until tomorrow. We're not
That's
doing
fine, we have all night.
it. We're not doing it. Then who do you serve?
Yeah,
So I think that by,
everybody.
I think
Don't
by
serve
not,
us anymore.
That's right, I don't. This is going to be it for me. So this is what we're doing. And anybody who starts speaking out loud, we will be asked to remove because we want to proceed with this. This is no fun for anybody.
Oh, come on.
Folks,
No, it's vindictive.
no, it is not.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Let me tell you one thing,
Retaliation.
one thing, and this is the end of this conversation.
No, it's not.
I don't care that I didn't get on. I don't care.
Obviously.
I've got surgery tomorrow. I would not like to be here if I don't have to.
Then why?
Because we are required to do this.
No, you're not.
That's it.
No, you're not.
That's it.
so
Councilman Abernethy, please
I
have
have
your
another question.
attorney's sense.
So are my constitutional rights not being violated by not having the public speak at the beginning or end of the meeting?
No, they're not.
You're not an attorney.
But you won't
No,
listen.
sir, I'm happy to address this issue. Mr. Chairman, if you are entitled to due process as to this issue, that is not of the same, like a Board of Adjustment hearing. In this context is an opportunity to be provided with notice, an opportunity to be heard, to have legal counsel present and to seek their advice and have them present on your behalf if you choose to do so. It's also an opportunity to present evidence as to the issue that's presented. You also, as a member of council, have a right to deliberate as to any motion that's made on this topic, and you also have a right to participate in the final decision of whatever that motion might be.
Okay, so the question I have is, and I do have legal representation here, Mr. Nathan Miller. And Mr. Miller, if I say anything that I need to refrain from, please stop me.
Well, if I may interrupt you and speak in regards to notice, I do not believe Mr. Abernethy was served with the notice of hearing for this or the agenda pursuant to the statute under 168-71, which requires that at least 6 hours before the meeting that he be served with an agenda via hand delivery at his usual dwelling place. I understand it might have been emailed, but the statute requires. I also understand that the Beech Mountain Code allows all reasonable efforts by the clerk to call or do whatever. However, the general statute would trump your local ordinance. So then that would be under subsection, that's B1. B2 would allow a special meeting to be held when the mayor and all members of the council are present and consent thereto. We are here, and I believe Mr. Abernethy would not consent to this meeting. So I do not believe proper notice has been given to Mr. Abernethy pursuant to the statutes.
And Mayor, if you'll give me an opportunity to review that issue, I'll speak to that.
Okay, we'll
Thank
sit
you,
down.
ma'am.
Probably a good time for public comment.
Madam Mayor, I believe that council is addressing the difference between emergency meeting and a special meeting.
Thank you.
So we didn't have to be here today. We could have let the next council face this political motivated issue rather than doing it today.
Reviewing the statute, the requirements of 160A71 do require certain notice requirements to a member. However, the presence of that member at the meeting constitutes an acceptance of service for that meeting. So there is not a provision in the statute that provides for a member to be present and also object to the meeting continuing. So it does appear that by Mr. Abernethy's presence here today, the requirements of 160A71 would be met.
Okay.
Now, you say appear. I mean, is that set in stone? Is that concrete?
I'm sorry, sir?
No.
Do you need to address that, sir?
I would like to address that. Obviously, I work, I'm a colleague of Mr. Eggers, and I work with him and against him on various fashions. I'm looking at B1, I see nowhere where his presence waives any such notice. And B2, it says that we can be present, but we must also consent thereto. And unless you're reading some annotated statutes that I don't see, I do not read it the way that you read it, Mr. Eggers.
And Madam Mayor, it does appear that that would be met by him being present. That is a decision council can make as to whether to postpone, to call a recess of this meeting, and you can renotice it if you so wish, or you're free to proceed if you so choose.
Proceed.
Recess.
Proceed or recess?
Recess.
Yeah, we know.
To make sure that we do and give everybody due process, I think we probably should recess.
And my suggestion, if you wish to do that, would be to find a date that is at least 48 hours from today's date to reconvene. And renotice it according to a special notice meeting with attempts at personal delivery.
You saying we have to do this in 48 hours?
No, ma'am, at least 48 hours from today. So today being
At least.
Thursday, at least past Saturday at 5:15.
Yeah, that worked for me.
I'm out of town.
Okay.
If,
Let the new council handle it.
as to council's pleasure, that's within your discretion.
So may I make a motion to address this December the 11th?
Yes.
And it's out of y'all's hands today. And
I think we
Yeah,
should
maybe
proceed.
all the people,
I mean-
We should proceed.
We're all here?
Oh.
Proceed, Carl. Recess or proceed? Proceed. Majority states proceed. We're proceeding.
Procedurally, the clerk, that'd be a motion for December the 11th that dies for lack of a second.
No, we're proceeding. We're proceeding with the meeting now.
I believe it's a misstatement. It's December 10th is what Councilman is, that's the next meeting? Is that what you're,
Yes, ma'am.
okay.
Can I make a motion to proceed?
hear a second? Wendell seconds. All in favor of proceeding? All against?
Nay.
4 to proceed, 1 against. We're proceeding with the meeting. Or whatever. So, Whiter, your counsel is up to present?
Mr. Miller?
Yes, first we'd have a motion to dismiss this proceeding from the lack of subject matter jurisdiction of this board. Obviously, this board is duly constituted by the state of North Carolina through your charter. Nothing in your charter or Chapter 160A allows you to have an evidentiary hearing as to the eligibility of one of your members. There is such a procedure set forth. I will tell you that I have reviewed Mr. Egger's memorandum, and for the most part, I think Mr. Egger's memorandum is well thought and well put together. The problem lies in his last attachment from Mr. Robert Joyce of the North Carolina Institute of Government. I don't know your familiarity with him. I know Mr. Egger's familiarity with him and my familiarity with him. He is very knowledgeable and speaks on various governmental topics and is kind of the guru who would know this type of stuff. So there is not a tried and true procedure to remove a council member. Obviously, by Mr. Abernethy's refusal to withdraw or step aside, he disputes the allegations that he is not a resident. I have obviously seen the thing included in the memo, and I've seen whatever these DMV records are and the voter records, but regardless of those, he disputes it, and therefore an evidentiary hearing has to be met. Nobody has given you the power under North Carolina state law to have that said hearing. The power, according to Mr. Joyce, who I tend to agree with, rests with the Board of Elections. And this is, I don't know the answer to this, whether it would be the Avery Board of Elections or the Watauga Board of Elections, since you straddle the county lines. But they have the evidentiary hearing, and it's set forth in Mr. Joyce's memo, which is on Mr. Egger's memo, and it is a similar situation, except in that one they use a county commissioner who has served 2 years and somebody wants to challenge their residency. According to Mr. Joyce and according to the general statute 163-85, which may be 163A at this point, they've monkeyed with that statute and I can't remember which version we're on now. But the challenge is to the Board of Elections, who conducts an evidentiary hearing, and Mr. Abernethy's due process rights are protected. This notice that was sent out, on November, I don't know when it was sent out, but relatively recently. That is not enough time in the legal world to afford somebody due process to fight against the claims against them, nor is this board set up. I understand that you have boards of adjustments, and I understand that there are instances where a board can sit as a quasi-judicial. It's just you haven't been granted the authority to do that, and without the authority to do that, you cannot act. So the mechanism is through the Board of Elections, who then gives out proper notice, allows a time to prepare a defense, and then it is heard with both sides presenting evidence. The Board of Elections will vote, and then the Board of Elections will make their decision. As it's laid out in here, if the Board of Elections' decision was against Mr. Abernethy, and Mr. Abernethy still refused, at that point, you all could appoint whoever it is you voted to appoint. There is another statute, it's North Carolina General Statute 1, Chapter 41, which deals with, and I'm going to not be able to pronounce this right, quo warrantis, which is a mannerism where any one of you could file a civil lawsuit which would be heard as to whether he is a holdover or whether he is illegally occupying that seat, and a trier of fact who has subject matter jurisdiction and has the ability to hear it would actually hear it. And at that hearing, again, due process would be served because there is a time to file a complaint and an answer and then a duly set court date. During that time, and as set out in that statute, the person who is being challenged does continue to serve until such time as a court makes that decision. So, in conclusion, Mr. Joyce has set forth in his memorandum which way has to be done. I challenge Mr. Eggers or any of the board members to point me to a statute under 160A, which is the governing statutes for municipalities, as what entitles you to hold an evidentiary hearing as to whether one of your members is a citizen or not. It just doesn't exist. And so without it, you have to follow the proper procedure going through the Board of Elections. I understand it takes some time, and I also understand, what Mr. Eggers has put in his memorandum about, the business of the town does not stop, and I certainly understand that. But, that hearing under 163-85 is expedited. It may not be fast in everybody else's world, but it's fast in a lawyer's world. So for those reasons, I do not believe this board has subject matter jurisdiction to hear this evidentiary hearing. In addition, I also have a motion. Well, I'll wait until Mr. Eggers responds.
Madam Mayor, to address that issue, as the board's aware, I have previously served on our county board of elections for a decade and the state board of elections. The hypothetical posited by Professor Joyce deals with a citizen activist who wishes to challenge the residency of a seated member. And the avenue for a citizen to do that is through the Board of Elections. The Board of Elections only addresses two issues as to their when a person is eligible or not eligible. One is a candidacy challenge, and the other is whether the person is presently registered to vote. As the board has seen in the memorandum prepared, Mr. Abernethy has relocated his registration back to Beech Mountain. That would not be the dispositive issue. Additionally, as Professor Joyce points out, the decision by the Board of Elections does not address the qualifications of a member to sit on its board. And that has to be done by council. I would, in answer to Mr. Miller's question, would point to the 160A-174 that provides for the council's ability to address these issues. Additionally, the town code has codified the process for addressing qualifications for office in section 30.60. That was adopted originally February 9th of 1982, which longtime residents of the town will know that is upon the original or near to original adoption of the Code of Ordinances. So as to jurisdiction, this board would have jurisdiction to proceed. If I may back up to Mr. Miller's first point that we spoke of earlier regarding service of 168-71, may I inquire of the clerk as to whether there was an attempt at service at Mr. Abernethy's address by either her or by an agent for the town, or how we serve notice of this?
No, sir. The notice was served as we've done special meetings in the past. Would you like me to recount the procedure?
Yes, ma'am, if you could
Okay,
address that for me, please.
The mayor, in writing, requested the special meeting. I posted it on the usual boards for council chambers. The sunshine list notification went out directly after the approval of the agenda items by the mayor, and it was also posted on the website so that the links were live so everyone could view the agenda itself. on the website.
How was the agenda and the information submitted to the members of council?
The same way everyone else was notified,
Which is?
which is the email through
Madam
their
Mayor,
town of Beech Mountain address.
in looking through the statute and some of the other resources related to that, in an abundance of caution, I believe it would be appropriate for a renotice of a special meeting at a date certain to address this, to cure or address the question of service. Mr. Abernethy is present, and there is an argument that that does warrant that. However, Mr. Miller, on his behalf, has objected to a lack of personal service on him at least 6 hours prior to the day, prior to this set meeting. Therefore, given the importance of this issue and the gravity of what's being considered, I believe it would be appropriate for council to locate an appropriate date and give notice of a special meeting. And Madam Mayor, I apologize to council for that not being addressed earlier, but as I hope you know, I want to make sure we get this right. And Madam Mayor, I don't do that for applause.
No. I don't think they're applauding you.
No.
They're applauding Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Okay, well, then we need another date. Now, do we have to do that date now, or can we figure out the time? Because I don't know, I mean, personally, if I have to be here, I don't know when I'm going to be available.
Madam Mayor, under the statute, you may call a special meeting on at least 48 hours notice and at least 6 hours attempted notice to the councilman. It's not required, of course, that you would necessarily be there. You may set that notice at another time, or I would need to check the statute whether it's 2 or 3, any 2 or 3 council members could call a special meeting.
Okay, so.
It's 2.
So it does not need to be done today if you do not wish to do it today.
I think we need to, I mean, for me, I don't know when I'm going to be able to do it. And so I don't want it not to move forward if I'm not here, and I would like to be here, but I don't know. I don't know how long I'm going to take to heal and how I'm going to be able to walk around and stuff, so.
Well, they can move forward to December the 10th.
Yeah.
I think it should be before that.
Of course.
You believe at this point you'll be available on the 10th?
I'll probably be available before that. I won't be available next week,
Okay.
and might be available the week after.
About a date after the 3rd of December.
The third is the-
That's a Tuesday.
As far as I'm concerned, let's do it on the 10th.
Yes, there you go.
Should I stand up now or later? I believe we should do it on the 10th, before the new council is sworn in. And then let's get it cleared, either Wagner is on or is not, and then we can move forward where the new council can have not to deal with the situation.
Mr. Calvin, just as a matter of a legal point, by statute, there is a certain date at which council is eligible to be sworn in, and if members of council do take their oath of office, even if it is before the meeting, they then, by law, replace the existing council. It is not necessarily something that this
You can't
council
do
gets
it
to set the
before.
agenda as far as this council reserving old business if the date for the swearing in has come and gone, unless the new incoming council were to be agreeable to that.
So much for that. So what do you want to do?
I'll put the 9th.
I'm at your pleasure, sir, as to whatever you wish to do.
Carl?
Do the right thing. Come on.
Yes, I'm here tonight. I will be there for any meeting that is called.
Well, we have to make a motion, so it's up, are you okay with the date?
As I have not missed a meeting, I will not miss another meeting. I will be available anytime.
Mr. Abernethy, are you available on the 9th?
I have no idea.
Yes, I am.
Of course you are.
Can I make a motion, we hold the meeting on the 9th,
Second.
Do you have time, sir, for your motion?
midnight?
So what happens when I look at my calendar and
Madam
I
Mayor.
can't?
May I speak on behalf of the new council? Excuse me? Yeah, all right. I think I'm confident in this council being able to handle that decision if you allow us to proceed on December 10th, and we can take it from here.
Yeah.
So be it.
So be it.
All right.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Mhm.
Thank
So
you.
it'll be at December 10th at,
Whenever the new
4
council
o'clock.
so chooses.
whenever the new
Council does it.
council gets sworn in.
Mr. Holloman, new council, December 10th, the meeting is when?
Yeah, 4 p.m.
4 o'clock.
Okay,
So move.
there you go, folks.
Thank you.